this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Spring into deals for seasonal savings. Shop select 1-pint annuals for just $1. Plus, get a free additional Cobalt 40-volt 2-amp-hour battery when you buy a select Cobalt 40-volt trimmer and blower combo kit. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid to 5/6. Annuals offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
Visit your nearby Lowe's on East 17th Avenue in Hutchinson.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Do you want to find a stress-free way to buy your next car? Start at CarMax and shop your way. And if you want to browse with confidence, get pre-qualified online with no impact on your credit score and shop cars within your budget. From luxury cars to family rides, CarMax has options for almost every price range, including more than 25,000 cars priced under $25,000. So, hey, want to get started? Just head to CarMax.com for details and get pre-qualified today. Want to drive? CarMax.
Wasn't that delicious?
So good.
Your bill, ladies?
I got it.
No, I got it.
Seriously, I insist.
I insisted first.
Oh, don't be silly. You don't be silly.
People with the Wells Fargo Active Cash credit card prefer to pay because they earn unlimited 2% cash rewards on purchases.
Okay, rock, paper, scissors for it. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. No!
The Wells Fargo Active Cash credit card. Visit wellsfargo.com/activecash. Terms apply.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. Other than getting exercise, I think the upside to walking in an area, other than, if you think about going to go walk around a track, and I'm not judging anybody for walking around the track, all right, to get their exercise. But there's something about getting out in nature, particularly if you got your dog with you. It's not just exercise, it's exploratory, right? Which is kind of cool, because I think it stimulates the brain. You can see all manner of things, whether it's other little animals that, my dogs always want to chase. Or it could be something unique, maybe a bird, maybe, some type of wildflower. Particularly right now, I love the smell of honeysuckle. I caught a whiff of it the other day. But some things when you're walking through the woods, you just don't expect to find. That brings us to Memphis, and not just Memphis, but a little neighborhood, a little area in Memphis called Hickory Hill, where all the way back in March, someone was on a walk. And what they found opened the door to a scene of pure horror. It was a single human skull. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. Well, Dave, holy smokes. We've been digging deep into Celeste Rivas. We've been, prior to that, we've been digging deep, into Miss Guthrie's disappearance. And I always find it interesting in media, what does media, big media, have an appetite for, is what it comes down to. And certain things will just occupy the headlines, and you could go on. I could go on about this ad nauseum, but Dave, this is an instance where, because we have multiple cases, this is an instance where something needs to be said, not only from a forensic standpoint, but just from how did we wind up here with what turns out to be 3 sets of human skeletal remains.
And by the way, those skeletal remains are between the ages of 3 and 7. You're not talking about, and we don't know how old the bones are. We don't know jack. We really know very little, except for the fact that, by the way, Joe, I was looking up the finder and the calls and things like that, because you're talking about March 8th. You mentioned that to start, that this case becomes an investigation with a dog walker or an anonymous call. Let me ask you about that, Joe. Because all right, police report. Okay, I want to go back to the very first thing here. Police respond to a suspicious person call. And that was the first story we heard. A suspicious person. But then a person out walking their dog finds a skeleton, or finds a skull, rather. Yeah. Now, there's a big difference to me between an anonymous call that supposedly comes in, a dog walker finding a skull, and police being sent to an area for a suspicious person. Because those are the 3 things we've been told about these bones and their discovery. I don't know which one's true, but those are because I went back and double checked, and I'm going, okay, we're talking about the chief of police giving her press conference, and saying that a person walking a dog came across a skull. But then we're going back to the initial report. No, police were there because of a call about a suspicious person. And then we have an anonymous call about bones or something. So right at the bat, I'm concerned. And why are we only hearing about this now in late April when this happened on March 8th?
Yeah, I've got some insight into that, I think. And that was one of the big questions initially that I had. But back to this kind of, whatever it is, amalgam of 3 different, sets of information that are coming in. 911 centers are controlled chaos. All right. And you don't know, first off, you don't know what status of anybody is that's calling in. They're not calling. Nobody calls 911 most of the time to say, hey, I've just had a great day. Right. And so you don't know if something has gotten lost in translation here relative to the person calling in, or how they're presenting themselves, or what they're saying. They might refuse to give their name. Then the person receiving the call, you don't know what their status is either. I mean, I have met some people that work in 911 centers that are off the charts relative to their ability to extract information from people just on a phone line in the worst sets of circumstances. And I'm talking about highly detailed information that turns out to be true many times, or at least their interpretation is kind of within the ballpark. Then there are others. You don't know. It's like, well, is my shift almost over with? So you don't really know where the disconnect is here. But yeah, it's very, very confusing. And here's the tough part about that. When you have confusion on the front end of being notified about something, that sets the table for how law enforcement is going to respond to the scene. Okay, because didn't you say one was suspicious person?
That was the first call. The reason police responded was a suspicious person call in the 3400 block of the road.
So you've got suspicious person. Well, that's completely different than somebody saying, well, I found a skull.
Right.
Because it sets the table. Because look, if you say that you have found a human skull, you're going to have the flare is going to go up at this point in time. And that almost, not in every single case, you're going to have a uniform that's going to show up. But automatically, human skull equals we've got to spin up crime scene. We've got to spin up detectives, CID. And we've got to spin up the ME. Suspicious person, you've got a lone patrol officer that's going to roll up, and sometimes it turns out to be nothing. They roll up and they say, hey, if they can find the caller, or they just might be bumping around in the dark. I got a suspicious person calling, it's anonymous. I don't know. I don't know where to go with it. They just kind of ride around looking for this. And how do you define suspicious person in a neighborhood? It could be somebody's cousin that's taking the trash out that's just staying for a couple of days. Or it could be somebody that's peeping in windows. You just never know. And so early on, Dave, with this particular data that's coming in, it makes for a confusing scenario from Jump Street.
Yep. And so I went and pulled the actual police report that was sent out to the media with the headline saying MPD investigates human remains located along Ridge Meadow Parkway. And the investigation began on March 8th, 2026, when officers responded to a suspicious person call in the 3400 block of Ridge Meadow Parkway. An anonymous caller reported a possible human skull near a wooded area. Now, Joe, those are two, they're lumping it together. I guess a human skull is a person, or they're a former person. I mean, I would not, I would not say a human skull being found is the same as a suspicious person.
No, it's not.
And so this is my problem with this from the very beginning. And then if you've got an anonymous call about a suspicious person or an anonymous call about a skull, why do we have the dog walker coming into this? You've mentioned many times how dogs show up with a bone and that they tend to love skulls.
They do.
So anyway, but then you've got the dates. I built you the timeline because the timeline of discovery, you pointed out, why are we really only hearing about this in the last week? March 8th, the anonymous call about a suspicious person. Then we have the discovery of bones. You're starting with that skull, which is understandable, but then going beyond that, Joe, to 3 human beings that are believed to be children between the ages of 3 and 7. And all I'm looking at is this a fresh dumping ground? Did somebody kill 3 people? I mean, because it takes a while to have skeletonized bones. And in this case, the official word right now is investigators don't know the age of the bones, how long these bones have been.
Yeah, and that's important to understand. When you start to talk about skeletal remains in the sense of age, be very, very careful how you frame that. Or how you interpret that in your mind, because we have age. Age means how old was the person at the time of death, okay? And there's certain developmental things, cues, disease, skeletal disease, all these sorts of things factor in relative to the age of the skeletal remains. And then you've got a separate set, which is still, it's time critical. How long have these remains been out there? In that sense, an approximation of, I hate to say time of death, but when you have skeletal remains, it takes a protracted period of time for them to naturally render down. And I was talking to somebody about this the other day, Dave. It's like, so if you imagine a terminal event in someone's life, it starts off as a a central point, right? And if we're looking at this almost, I don't know, would it be geometrically, I guess, or maybe if you look at it as a central point in time, as you go down that timeline and decomposition begins to take place, if you think about it as a ship, right, it gets broader and broader and broader as you move down the timeline until it's real wide, where it's really hard to narrow down when this occurred. So you get out to the idea where you've got skeletal remains, and I don't know, Dave, that they have all of the skeletal elements. I'm thinking they don't, because they've put out a number. They don't have all of the number of skeletal remains that are there. This thing is so broad, I think that it's really, really difficult to kind of really get a tight estimation on how long they have been there. One interesting thing, though, I'm thinking right now, is that they're saying that they have a specific, they've got 3 separate individuals, okay? So if you take all 3 of those individuals, their remains, and you lay them out, do the age and wear patterns seem similar? You see what I'm saying? Like how long they've been out there, are they degraded to the same level, at that, from that perspective? And that's just a little piece to this, because, back to your earlier statement, I'm fascinated by this, is this dumping area. Mm-hmm. Like, have we come into an environment now where maybe some predator has, offed little kids? Because what was that age range that we have right now?
3 to 7 years old.
3 to 7 years of age. God bless them, man. 3 to 7. And what are the odds? Dave, I got to tell you, in my years, I have never come across 3 separate skeletal remains of children. And certainly children that their age range is 3 to 7. They spent a lot of time here with these remains, examining these remains. The question is, what more specific information do they have? And what will it reveal regarding what happened to these little angels?
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
This is Jana Kramer from Wind Down with Jana Kramer. Every Mother's Day, I tell myself I'm going to be more thoughtful than flowers, because flowers are beautiful, but they don't last. In my house, everyone always ends up in the kitchen, friends, family, the kids, and I love having things around that spark conversation and feel special. That's why I love the Lennox Spice Village, and your mom will too. It's a set of 24 hand-painted little houses that are actually spice jars, and I swear people notice it the second they walk in. It's charming, it's nostalgic, and it somehow makes even everyday cooking feel a little more fun. And here's the best part. It actually gets used every day. Whether you're starting the full set or helping her complete one she's loved for years, there's a whole world of Spice Village to explore. This Mother's Day, give her something she'll treasure long after the card is put away. Trust me, once you see it, you'll want one too. Find the full collection at lennox.com/spicevillage.
Amazon Pharmacy presents Painful Thoughts.
A
Of course I see my coworker in line at the pharmacy. Can he tell I'm picking up prescription hemorrhoid cream? I'm probably standing weird. Why is he smiling? He knows. He's gonna call me Hemorrhoid Lloyd tomorrow. I know it. I gotta quit my job.
Next time, avoid awkward conversations and get fast free delivery with Amazon Pharmacy. Healthcare just got less painful.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
I've got to bang the drum just here for a second, my friends. I arguably have the best co-host and producer in the business, and this is why. This man, Brother Dave, has set out a timeline for me that is par excellence, and I want to go back to one of these points that you made along the way. Dave, you had noted that that along the way, we had a dog that was involved in this case early on, with the dog walker, where the remains are discovered. But, Dave, they brought out, I think that was on the 8th when that initial call came in. The police came out on the 9th, which is kind of interesting, that you've got this, I don't necessarily understand that gap. But it was on the 10th that cadaver dogs arrive at the scene. And, cadaver dogs, and I know that this sounds kind of nitpicky, cadaver dogs don't go out and find a body. They go out, and what they're searching for, there's 2 elements that's on their olfactory spectrum. They're looking for 2 elements. There are 2 volatile compounds that are out there. It's, hang on, let me see, cadaverine and putrescine. Okay, there's 2 things, these elements that are being given off in a gaseous state. And so their noses are tuned into this, and they're picking this up. When they show up, it's driving their senses wild. They can smell it. Putrescine is actually kind of an interesting compound because we not only see it in what you're thinking about relative to the dead, for instance, but did you know putrescine is actually an element that can be found, Dave, in bad breath. And so you think about anybody that blows that dragon breath in your face early in the morning, and I've certainly blown my share of it. That's kind of what they're honing in on. These two compounds. So I guess the big question is, how far downrange do dogs have to go? Or do the elements that they're searching for, how far downrange do they go where you can no longer detect this? Well, I've had people ask me that before, but when you're talking about a collection of remains, Dave, it doesn't matter that they can't sniff out every single element. The important part here from an investigative standpoint is that all you need is one element, one rib, one vertebral body, one femur. I don't know, you insert here one element of the hand, because therein, if they get that hit on that area, that's where the cops begin to search. You had asked me why. And I don't think you asked me, but you put it out there because now we're finding out about this, and we're well into April, brother. At this point, this has occurred
March 8th.
We're approaching almost 2 months ago. Well, in a couple of weeks, it'll be 2 months ago. Dave, I think that this evidence field that you're talking about, I don't think everything's contained in that one spot. It might be, but I think that what they're dealing with is so incredibly gruesome that they had to really kind of develop a big area to make sure they had everything contained. And to this point, all sources or, all indications are that they've kind of narrowed this down into this one particular field or crime scene area. And I'm sure they've searched beyond it. So this is where the concentration of the remains are. And the remains are actually found in kind of an interesting area, aren't they, Dave?
Well, before we get into the actual thing, I've got a couple of questions for you, okay? All right. March 8th, the phone call comes in. March 9th, investigators followed up what was found the previous day, the skull. Because when they first got out there, obviously no idea of what we're really dealing with. At first it was suspicious caller, then it's a skull. So when they come out on the 9th, they recover more bones and start looking around the area and start making a plan. They actually find a human skull right there at the wood line near where the woods begin. And so the next day they bring out the cadaver dogs, as you mentioned, on March 10th. And that takes the canine units. They head off towards a drainage pipe. And it's this drainage pipe that the cadaver dogs hit on about the possible presence, of additional human bones. Now, Joe, right off the bat on this case, you've taught me to look at the finder, which is why I'm really stuck on how this launched. But who's in charge when you have the Memphis Police Department, the FBI, which, by the way, FBI and Homeland Security being called in right off the bat? That struck me as just a little different. It's not like Memphis has a small police department. They've got, anyway, so you've got the Memphis Police Department, FBI, TBI, the Memphis Fire Department, Shelby County Sheriff's Office, and Homeland Security. All are involved in this case. And press conference was conducted by the Memphis Police Department Chief of Police. So who's in charge, Joe, when you have all these different entities?
The Memphis Police, plain and simple. And, listen, I would imagine, and this is just me kind of spitballing here, that when they discovered what they had, they called all these other governmental entities, our law enforcement agencies, and of course our friends in the fire service, and they're there for a support role, I would imagine, because we don't know how far back into they have the fire service has certain resources that they can provide, things like very powerful outdoor lighting that illuminates the night. They actually have things that are called light trucks, and they can provide all kinds of things. However, I digress. If there is something that is potentially prosecutable here, it's going to be the Memphis PD. Now, they do not have the skill set that, say, FBI evidence response team has, but I can tell you who's actually leading the investigation from a forensic standpoint. It's going to be a forensic anthropologist, and potentially more than one, because you're talking about an area. And again, we don't know a lot about containment of the remains. We know about this drainage pipe, which is interesting to me, first off. But you're going to have somebody that has the ability to view this site from a very macro sense, very broadly, to a micro sense, where they're breaking it down to each little element and trying to interpret not just how the age of the person at death, and not just how long the remains have been there, but they're going to be looking at depositional patterns here, how these bones are distributed. Because it's weird, bones can be distributed over a vast area, or you can have a contained area that almost begins to take on the nature of like an ossuary, where you have like several sets of bones that are held in one area. And they're having to try to understand that regarding this. And so everything would have to be processed in the most detailed manner possible. And I'm talking about a full-on excavation, Dave, where this whole thing, we're talking about the time here that it took for everyone to be alerted, or the public rather. Dave, this whole area, wherever they have set up, that's where the dogs come in, where the dogs are walking around. They're trying to determine what the extent of these remains are, the deposition of the remains. But Dave, this whole thing would be cordoned off, and then they're going to create a massive grid area. It's going to be multiple grids. I don't know what the dimensions of the grids would be. Maybe it could be anything from 1 foot by 1 foot, or it could be 1 yard by 1 yard. And it'll be lined off that way, and you're working each individual grid. Just think about, like, if you've ever seen the excavations, you and I both are history guys. You've seen the excavations like at, Jamestown, right? Where, and you see how they kind of methodically go through each area, because every little element counts. Every little element counts here. We don't know how these kids, these children, these very young children came to their end. Are we talking about a triple execution here? Well, if we're talking about triple execution, we're not just looking for bones, elements of clothing. We're trying to find perhaps lead core projectiles that may have passed through the body, and we don't want anybody trampling on anything. So all of these elements come in. Oh, by the way, was any dirt thrown over them? Or are they just, what we call surface deposition, where the bodies are just kind of laid out? That's where this culvert or drainage pipe or whatever it is comes in, because I got questions here.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
This is Jana Kramer from Wind Down with Jana Kramer. Instead of giving your mom something that fades, give her something that becomes part of her home this Mother's Day. The Lennox Spice Village is a set of 24 hand-painted little houses that are actually spice jars, perfect for anyone who loves to cook, entertain, or enjoy the little details that make everyday life special. As a mom, I love gifts that help turn ordinary moments into memories. Charming, timeless, and meant to be used, this is one of those pieces she'll treasure. And once you see it, you'll want it for your own home too. Find the full collection at lennox.com/spicevillage.
Amazon Health AI presents Painful Thoughts.
Why did I search the internet for answers to my cold sore problem? Now I'm stuck down a rabbit hole filled with images of alarmingly graphic sores in various stages of ooze. I can clear my search history, but I can never unsee that.
Don't go down the rabbit hole. Amazon Health AI gets you the right care, fast. Healthcare just got less painful.
A doubly certified OBGYN and endocrinologist doctor, a naturopathic doctor, and a certified health coach walk into a room. What do they talk about? GLP-1, of course. but more specifically, the difference between the synthetic version of your body's own hormone that are prescribed by doctors nationwide versus Metabolism Ignite product, which naturally increases your body's GLP-1 by 61%. GLP-1 side effects can lead to nausea, fatigue, and muscle loss, whereas Metabolism Ignite is powered by plants, and there are no side effects. Some long-term results of GLP-1 links to weight gain after stopping the synthetic drug, which has been proven in multiple studies. In comparison to Metabolism Ignite, there is no weight regain, and this product supports metabolic health. Join the 50,000 customers by skipping the needles and taking 2 capsules of Metabolism Ignite a day for sustained weight loss with plant-based therapy. Visit VERACITYhealth.co. Promo code IHEART for up to 65% off your order today.
So, how did we get here? Or I guess a better question is, how did they get here? And Dave, that's one of the big questions. How is it that you have 3 children that wind up in the same area? And listen, I'm going to be very blunt here. We do not, or they do not. I'm lapsing back into my old investigator mindset where, I'm actually, they do not have all of the remains.
Right.
Because right now, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got a skull, and then we have 14, I think, additional skeletal remains that have been hang on. We've got 2 skulls, and then we've got 14 additional skeletal remains. So, how did all of these wind up here? I think is the salient question.
Well, and again, we've got 3 sets of bones, 3 bodies, or 3 remains of 3 people. Now, what we've been told between the ages of 3 and 7, and we don't know how long the bones have been where they were found. We don't know if the bones were buried and then, due to rain, whatever, were uncovered and then ended up floating towards the drainage ditch. We don't know. We don't know if the other bones at this point were found under dirt. We only know they've been found. But Joe, there is an assumption that is not based in any fact that, these are 3 children, they're siblings. And I'm not one to go there. And the reason is really simple. Gilgo. At Gilgo, we had bones in one general area that were planted there over an extended period of time, not related to one another other than the killer. And so in this case, we have the bones of 3 different individuals between the ages of 3 and 7. The area that we find these, Joe, across the street from an elementary school, across the street from a Head Start center, and right next to a church.
Yeah.
So we've got an area here that is chock full of children on a regular basis. So as we open up this case, how are we going to determine, A, how long were these bones there in this where they were found? Because somebody, let's just say it's children that were kept out of the public eye. They were raised at home, never left home, and they killed and they were dead and they became bones, and now we just go out and scatter the bones. Can that be determined? Or was this a dump zone where bodies were dumped at the same time or at different times? Can we determine these things, Joe? I guess is my bottom line, because I go back to Gilgo and I think of all, we still have remains at Gilgo that have not been identified, that have not been directly under the Heuermann. So I'm not willing to say these are 3 siblings.
Not at this time. I think that certainly that's on the table. Sure. Okay. However, what we do know, let's look at what we do know. For whatever reason, and I know that this is scientifically based. They're saying specifically, Dave, they have 3, even though we only have 2 skulls. Well, how did we arrive at that? Well, look at the age range we're talking about. 3 to 7, there are so many changes that take place developmentally in children from that period. And all the parents out there know this. From 3 till 7, oh my Lord. Just you're thinking about like the growth plates in the bones. They're at specific. There are specific markers for those as a child ages. Okay, so for some reason they've been able to look at the remains that they have and say, okay, these are 3 separate individuals. Now, will we be able to determine how long they have been out there? Is it possible to look, let's just say that we take these 3 individuals. Well, what representative sample do we have from all of these individuals? Well, obviously we've got 2 skulls. We know that those are related to 2 individual people. And then we have all the rest of these elements. We don't know what these elements are. Are they ribs, vertebra? Are they long bones? Or are they elements of the hands and the feet? At this we don't know, brother. And so what they're going to do, they're going to kind of compare and contrast, right? So they're going to look at all 3 of these elements and say, do these elements all have the same patina, which is what happens with bone as it's exposed. You can see it with casketed bodies. There's a patina that comes about on the bone that goes to aging. Now, I do know this. One statement that they have made is they have used the word years. Okay, they're saying years. Now, you started from the top saying it takes a while for a body to skeletonize, right? So there's no more soft tissue. Okay, that's probably gone, which is not unreasonable considering this is an outdoor situation. This is not like you have a casketed body where you can go out decades and decades, and still when you remove that casketed body, you're going to have soft tissue elements. Now, they won't, it's kind of a misnomer. They're not necessarily soft. They're almost leather-like, but you still have that tissue. You ain't got that here, brother. All right. So you've got these remains, 3 separate sets. I think the skulls play a big part into this. And also, here's another bit too. These skulls can be raced as well. You can come up with what race are these skulls. You can understand that. You can also look for any kind of physical deformities that you see on these remains, just eyeballing them, okay? Then the next question that kind of pops up on the radar, this goes to the familial thing. You know where I'm going here. Is there anywhere we can harvest DNA? Okay. If we have skulls, my big question is, do we have teeth? Okay. Long bones are fine. They're fine. We do have skulls. I think that recently we talked about the petrous bones inside of the skulls. If they open these skulls, which, there's a high probability they will, maybe you can get something out of the petrous bone. If there's teeth, that's where I'm going. And Dave, you don't have to get them all identified, brother. Just get one identified. Because therein, remember, we have talked about this over and over and over again. If we can determine the identity of somebody, that's the proverbial thread that you pull on any investigation involving the dead, because there, the whole narrative begins to open up. I got to tell you, there's something so bizarre about this, because just given what we know right now, okay, it makes me want to scream out, hey, anybody that's missing 3 kids, raise your hand, please. And I know this sounds really flippant, but Dave, we're not talking about 3 adults that have been living on the street for a protracted period of time. They've been involved in things they shouldn't have been involved in, and we've got bodies, okay? We're talking about 3 really, really young kids. Who's missing 3 kids? One of the first questions I ask about this, I know we've got this culvert drainage pipe area. One of the first questions I ask, because this has happened, is there an abandoned graveyard around here? Was there, because you'll have this lots of times, and notice I didn't say cemetery, I said graveyard. Was there an old church that may have occupied the space at some point in time? And there is an old graveyard that's there, which graveyards are associated with churches, and did a bad job of, burying these bodies. But hydrology is going to come into this, I think. Where is Hickory Hill? Well, by virtue of saying this area is hill, that means that it's elevated. Well, why is that important? Because, baby, we're talking about Memphis. If anybody's ever spent time in Memphis, if you've ever been there, they deal with a little thing called flooding and standing water, because you're not in the Mississippi Delta, but you're adjacent to the Mississippi River. Did water surge in there and kind of, bring remains out? Also, the culvert, this drainage pipe, did somebody kill 3 children and put them into a drainage pipe? And they've just been kind of sitting there for this protracted period of time. Another big question, Dave, is how is it that after, because I'm not using the term, they said years, okay? Mm-hmm. How is it that back there on, what was the date, March 8th? Why is it that on that particular day, that particular dog walker, why is it that, and it wasn't necessarily the dog that did it, why is it that this is the first time that you find a skull? Mm-hmm. Why is that skull out there? And, and I've talked about canine activity in the past, as you stated off the top, where you got a canine, finds a skull, and they love to play with it. That's just the nature of dogs. I don't know. There's so many questions here, because I thought with the culvert, if you've got, the hydrology, as I'd mentioned, is it washing? Were they deposited upstream from the culvert, and these remains have kind of tumbled down over a period of time? Dave, didn't you say? I think that it's mentioned that didn't they do a study of the drainage system in here as well?
Yeah, they actually pulled out the cameras, and went into the drainage system from the front where they could where the dogs had hit. Went that way, and then they being investigators, entered the pipe at a different area, and that was like I've got the dates, like March 16th was when they started peeling back the. That's when they used cameras. Okay, so again, March 8th, call comes in, body's found, or March 9th, skull is found. March 16th, we go to the drainage pipe with the cameras. On April 1st, Joe, and I don't know why there is such a time period here, but on April 1st, investigators accessed the drainage system from a nearby location and found what appeared to be an additional skull. First skull found March 8th, 9th, second skull April the 1st. The day after they found the skull, search teams conducted a coordinated canvass of the area, and that resulted in the recovery of 14 additional bones consistent with human remains. Now, Joe, right off the bat, they're telling us that these bones have been out here for years. But in a drainage ditch, you're finding a skull, and then in an area scattered around more bones. Something seems odd to me.
It just doesn't. It's so skewed to me, and look, I understand why they got so many eyes on this. Well, first off, it's terrifying. You've got 3 dead kids and they're skeletonized. Okay, I'm calling in Calvary. Okay, mm-hmm. God bless Memphis PD. They got a hard job, brother. Memphis is not an easy place.
And
all right.
Joe, while you bring that up, it's important to note the FBI does not insert itself into local issues. They have to be called in.
Invited. Yeah, you're right.
Memphis
they
PD.
have to be invited. Yeah, and listen. The recent unpleasantness in Pima County, Arizona, a tip of the cap to Memphis PD, understanding that maybe we need help on this. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right. Homeland Security, FBI in particular, they have to be invited in. The Memphis field office which is a big office, has gotten involved in this, and they've thrown their resources at it. And also, when you bring their resources in on site, guess what? You've got other elements back east, specifically Quantico. Now that switch is flipped as well. So you're going to have a lot of people on this, and this is the type of case or cases where you're going to want the best minds in human osteology, the forensic anthropology world. You're going to want them working. And listen, Tennessee, as we all know, even though this is Western Tennessee, it's home with the body farm, right? I mean, arguably the top names in forensic anthropology, have come out of the state of Tennessee. All right. Memphis has had a history of having excellent forensic anthropologists associated with that office. The FBI has those resources, and you're going to have a lot of people scratching their heads over this. But I still assert here that whatever they have, the next big step is trying to determine who these children are. And I hope that this case is going to be bumped to the head of the line. First off, it's terrifying. If you live in Hickory Hill, I've got questions. If I'm living there, I want to know, why are there 3 little kids that are found in a culvert or adjacent to a culvert and a drainage system? And why is somebody walking down the road and they're finding a skull? So there's an urgency to this, I think, because as we know, even though they're saying years, the further down the timeline we move, the more that is lost. I'm hopeful in the sense that they've kind of staked this moment in time. They've frozen it, as best they can, and kind of held on to it. Now the investigation is going to kick into a higher gear here, trying to determine, who these children are. Again, going back to, I'd want to know things like, well, first off, are there any other missing children in this specific zip code? And when I say zip code, I mean like in the Hickory Hill area. Okay, how many other little kids that are fitting within this time frame are there that are missing out of this area? Okay, because and just follow me here, if we're going down this route where this could be, some kind of predatory behavior where they're placing remains out there, is that a real thing? Has that happened? Or are there other kids that are missing that fit within, this age group? Okay. How many of them are there? How long have they been missing? When were they last seen? Is this something that's unique to this area? And have there been any other oddities that have occurred in Hickory Hill? And I mean, like people that have, the disturbing part that you mentioned, Dave, for me is the church, but certainly the school. Are we looking for dudes in overcoats, that are walking along the fence line at the school and looking in there? Dave, do we have any sexual predators that live in this area that have been identified by the state? Okay. Trust me, they're going down that road with this. But let me
ask you this, because this area of Memphis that we're talking about is very close to the state border with Arkansas.
Yes, Mississippi. It's southeastern Memphis.
So you're going to be dealing with the possibility of having to, if you're going to investigate out from there, that it could have these.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, so there's another strain.
Yes, sir. You're right. It's not as a crow flies, brother. It's really, because I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking the same thing. it's nothing to hop over the state line and you're right there in Hickory Hill, within a few miles. And listen, I've got a lot of friends that live in northern Mississippi, and they have worked in Memphis. It's an easy thing. So you're right there.
Think about it. You remember the West Memphis 3
yes.
that case that came out back in the day, and it was actually Arkansas.
That was yeah. And so and this is dipping down into you're getting close to the border of northern Mississippi in this area too. So and again, that goes into the area that not a lot of people talk about, but it's out there as geographic profiling. Where you're thinking about potentials, because we don't have to say just to the folks in Tennessee, our friends there, is anybody missing 3 kids? We got to go into Mississippi and say, hey, who's missing 3 kids? Again, that's the troubling part to all of this. How do you have 3 kids that go missing? Is there another explanation? Were these legitimate burials? Which right now I'm thinking no, because if this is an affected area like a graveyard, okay, where you have remains, and I want to kind of put this to rest, where you have remains that have floated to the top because of hydrology or taphonomy and all the stuff that that goes on with the dead that are buried, why is it only 3 kids? Why don't you have other remains that have surfaced? And that I'm not inside the investigative bubble, but I would imagine if there were other elements that they found, they would have mentioned it. They've honed in on 3 kids, though, with a very specific age range. So that tells me that the anthropologists are certainly hard at work here. Again, that's another reason I think that this has taken so long to make it into the news cycle. And I can tell you this. We have not heard the last of this, because going back to what body bags is all about, we're going to talk about these babies. And any information that we get that has some type of forensic value that we can discuss, we're going to keep it in the cycle. Because you know what? I try not to be jaded. But folks, if you don't continue to breathe life into cases like this, just like in Gilgo, they'll fade. They will fade. It'll be the next big shiny thing that'll come along. Let's don't do that here. Let's keep the spotlight on this. And I hope that it's something that is not as sinister as we might think it is. But y'all, I got to tell you, this is a very, very unique set of circumstances from the perspective of this old death investigator. More information is going to come out, and as soon as it does, Brother Dave and I are going to hop on the air, and we're going to tell you what we know, and we're going to give you our insight into it. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
A doubly certified OBGYN and endocrinologist doctor, a naturopathic doctor, and a certified health coach walk into a room. What do they talk about? GLP-1, of course. But more specifically, the difference between the synthetic version of your body's own hormone that are prescribed by doctors nationwide versus Metabolism Ignite product, which naturally increases your body's GLP-1 by 61%. GLP-1 side effects can lead to nausea, fatigue, and muscle loss, whereas Metabolism Ignite is powered by plants, and there are no side effects. Some long-term results of GLP-1 links to weight gain after stopping the synthetic drug, which has been proven in multiple studies. In comparison to Metabolism Ignite, there is no weight regain, and this product supports metabolic health. Join the 50,000 customers by skipping the needles and taking 2 capsules of Metabolism Ignite a day for sustained weight loss with plant-based therapy. Visit VERACITYhealth.co. Promo code IHEART for up to 65% off your order today.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistant's assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
You know what quality feels like. You can see it in the way a fabric moves, recognize it in a flawless fit, and appreciate it in the details that make our styles unique. That kind of quality doesn't happen by accident. It happens with imagination, creativity, and intention. At Coldwater Creek, it's the design standard we've honored for over 40 years. Our rich mountain heritage has shaped how we think about clothing from the very beginning, with a commitment to quality that never quits. Exceptional fabrics, considered design, silhouettes we've made our own. The signature touches that set each piece apart, and styles that are distinctively Coldwater Creek. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop new arrivals and save 15% on purchases $75 or more with code IHEART.
Sink into affordable luxury. Anabay is the only machine-washable sofa, inside and out. With stain-resistant slip covers and a cloud-like frame duvet, everything goes right in the wash. Plus, the modular design lets you change the look of your space anytime. Visit WashableSofas.com to upgrade your home. Shop up to 60% off site-wide, with sofas starting at just $699 and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Shop now at WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.